Do you have a sweet tooth but a restricted diet? Of course! Are you looking for something deliciously sweet but also vegan? Apple Gummies may well be your answer. Made from apples and some gelling agents, this could well be the recipe that you're looking for. My little tree is still shedding lots and lots of apples every day. I'm going to chop them straight into the Instant Pot. I'll take the stalk out, but then the rest of it, throw all of it in pretty much intact. I have apple juice, so really it's just enough to cover the bottom of the Instant Pot. Apples are chopped. I'm setting the Instant Pot for 5 minutes on high. The Instant Pot has finished and been sitting for 4 minutes. Oh wow, there's a lot of liquid. The reason I put the apple juice in is to stop the bottom from catching. If the food catches, it starts sticking on the pan, the Instant Pot sensor switches everything off. And I don't think it lets you switch it back on until you release the lid, which means venting all of the pressure. Next job is to blend it and then sieve it. It's already quite yucky. I've got 500 grams of the mixture here. Get a spoon and then just push the pureed apple through the sieve. And you're left behind with all the bits of the apple core. I had to put the extractor on because it was boiling hot and I can't open the door because it's late. As I'm going on with this experiment, I'm realising it's a bit like vegan cheese making. Some of the powders that I'm using, so I guess one has kind of informed the other. The one thing about doing the cheese making, I've noticed repeatedly, when I'm stirring it on the stove, it has a tendency to stick and catch quite easily. So I'm going to do it in a bain-marie and start the witchcraft. A tiny bit of salt, that's just to enhance the flavours a little bit. I can't remember why I bought Inulin, but I did. And it's been chilling out in the cupboard for years. It's used as a sweetener. It also acts as a thickener. So I'll put in half a teaspoon. I have a little sieve, very fine sieve. I'm hoping that sieving it in will stop it from clumping. That didn't work very well at all, did it now? That doesn't bode well for what I wanted to do. I think it's the steam. Interesting. I think the safest thing to do might be to mix things up in some apple juice, heat it up and then pour it in. This is fascinating though. It's almost like rock. But it's not sweet really. No, okay, it is sweet. But it's not sugary. I'm adding 100 mils of apple juice to a small saucepan. A teaspoon of Inulin. I don't know if the first one did anything or if it's just sitting in big lumps. This is a 1/4 teaspoon of Xanthan Gum. Xanthan Gum is kind of to add a bit of smoothness. So I've used it in ice cream and sorbet, frozen yogurt, that's what I put it in, just to stop it crystallising. Teaspoon of Carrageenan Kappa. This is again a gelling agent, similar to agar. Now I can already see some of these gelling agents are working. I think it would be better to blend all of the ingredients. So once I've sieved it, put it back into the blender, have the blender running and put the ingredients in. That hasn't been anywhere near the heat, and that's already what I've got, so I'm doing something right. Potato starch. This is like corn flour in that it's better if you mix it with a liquid. I'm going to do it with juice, I've never done it before. 50 mils of apple juice. And to that I'm going to put in a tablespoon, mix it up, pour that in. And then finally I'm going to add in some Maltodextrin. I'm going to put in a tablespoon. I don't know if that's the right thing to do, but we're going to find out. Maybe I shouldn't have thrown it in like that. I've got definite lumps. Blending it is absolutely the way to go. It's very glossy. I just don't think it's thick enough. Let me come and show you this. That's the Inulin. It's like a candy cane. That's going to be harnessed at some point. I think another tablespoon of potato starch. As less apple juice as you can get away with. So put in maybe 5 mils. You can see it's a non-Newtonian fluid, so it looks runny, but then it's hard. Maybe it should have been a bit looser. Yeah, ignore that last bit of advice. Just do it with much more liquid. I think I'm on the right track, except for that potato starch debacle. I had a spoon in the fridge for a couple of minutes just to get really cold. It would have been better in the freezer. I can't get to the freezer. It is setting. But it doesn't have much body. It needs to be set more. I'm going to put more Carrageenan in. A teaspoon of Carrageenan. I never learned, do I? This is more of a proof of concept one. Definitely very loopy. And it's coming away from the side of the bowl quite cleanly. Spoon check, let's see. Better. Nothing else is going to happen with this. I don't think it's going to get any thicker. So I might as well pour it out and I have to work very quickly. I can see the lumps of powder scattered about. I'll let this cool down while I'm cleaning up the rest of the kitchen and then put it in the fridge overnight just to set. See you in the morning, kids. Welcome back. So it's day 2 of the great gummy experiment. The first batch that we experimented with last night, that's been chilling overnight in the fridge. It's quite firm, quite springy, bouncy in texture. So it's a little bit jelly-like, but it's very, very brittle. I don't know if that's the right word in candy making, but there's no real stretch to it, like there would be in a gummy bear. The flavour is really mild, probably too mild, but I'm going to put in a tablespoon of the apple butter that I made last week, and if that doesn't work in that batch, then the next time I make it I might make up some apple syrup, just boil down a carton of apple juice, because that really gives an intense apple flavour. I've also ordered a couple fruit powders from eBay. They've got apple, raspberry, a couple different flavours, just to try different things with. So worst case scenario, I can always bung a bit of flavouring in there. So back to batch 2. I want to experiment with adding a bit of the apple butter that I made last week. I think maybe a tablespoon in there might just boost the apple flavours up a little bit. And you need to make more. Nah. I've just been smearing on everything, donuts especially. High-speed blenders heat what's in them, I think because they're going so fast and the friction. And as I discovered last night, the heat starts activating some of those binders and gellers. So I really need to keep the heat to a minimum. I've decided to blend the powders into the puree. Famous last words. My concern is that it's all going to just start getting really hard in there and I won't be able to get it back out. I'm going to try, I suppose. I'm setting up a bowl and a sieve here just to try and prevent any lumps. I'm using a tablespoon of the Inulin, a tablespoon of potato starch, a tablespoon of tapioca starch. If you're making vegan mozzarella, I've not tried myself, but apparently if you use tapioca starch, that's what gives it the nice stretch. I'm hoping I can bring that texture into the gummies using the tapioca. A teaspoon of Xanthan Gum and 2 teaspoons of the Carrageenan, and then just a little bit of salt and a tablespoon of Maltodextrin. This is just guesses and assumptions, and a tablespoon of glutinous rice flour. Glutinous rice flour is used to make mochi balls, squidgy Japanese delicacies, and things like dumplings for dim sum. So I'm hoping, again, it's going to give that stretchy texture. Just mixing it together really, just to try and make sure there's no huge clumps of one particular ingredient and get the dispersal fairly even. And now comes the bit I'm somewhat dreading, getting it into the blender and blending it. Really not looking forward to this. Okay. It's going to go fine. It's going to go really well. I'm getting everything as close to the edge of the bowl as I can, just to then hopefully minimise the time spent on insertion. I'm going to try and work as quickly as possible to get it into the bowl. It's really thick. There is a little bit of lumpiness, but not nearly as much as there was in the first batch. The flavour is probably about as intense as it was yesterday, but it's got an awful lot more stuff in it, so I think the apple butter did help. It definitely does look like the cheeses when I make it. The idea's just popped in my head, maybe using a cake mixer as it's in the bain-marie, or as it's on the heat. I don't know if that would do anything. You know, maybe increase the volume of air, so then you'd get that kind of the faux kind of gummies, like the fried eggs, the white bit. I accept I'm never going to get exactly how the companies do it, because they've got these massive machines and, you know, teams of people working on development. But if I can come up with some sort of candy that's some way edible, that would be fun. I can see lumps in there, but I'm not sure if that's a lump as such, or if it is just bits of set mix. Really good little workout. Only on one arm though. And I can't switch sides because I'm not so dexterous with the right. And it will just flick everywhere. Like that. Put some on the back of a cold spoon again, just to check the setting. Back in the fridge it goes. I think much is going to change from this point onwards. And then I need to leave this overnight, and then I will also mix up some sugar and citric acid for a little coating. Okay, I'm just having a look at the spoon set. Not a massive difference to the other batch, to be truthful, which is really surprising. I don't know what to make of that. Expected it to at least be harder because of the Inulin, the way that went really hard. And I only put a teaspoon in before, so I would have thought putting a tablespoon in would have done a bit more. It sets really fast, it sets well, but it doesn't have any real chew to it, any bite. Back to the drawing board again. I don't think anything else can happen with the mixture now. It is perhaps thicker than the other batch. Yeah, it sets almost instantly. I'm going to give this at least a couple of hours to set, maybe even overnight. We're now a couple of days after I first made the gummies. Other things, well, life got in the way, so they've just been chilling out in the fridge. So it's time to coat them and taste as well, really. Right, so that's the piece I originally cut off. Flavour has got a bit stronger actually. The surface is a bit wet, so I'm hoping that's enough that when I put it into the sugar and acid mix, it will just stick. If it doesn't, I've got a little dish of water that I might rub on it. I've also got my blowtorch, so maybe heating it up. Hopefully it won't come to that. This is 1 tablespoon of granulated sugar and 3/4 of a teaspoon of citric acid. That's just to coat the gummies and give it another kind of dimension of flavour. I just grabbed a little dish for the offcuts, because I want to make this as square as possible, because that will make it easier to coat. So you can see it's got a nice bit of bend to it. It just doesn't really have chew, like a Haribo, for example. I do want to try and get the pieces fairly even. I'll go in. Seems to be sticking well. Give this a little taste, see how it is. That's actually really good. I think the citric acid is kind of ramping up the flavour a little bit in my mouth. So it's boosting the apple flavour. Because the surface was a little bit wet, I can see that the coating is getting kind of dissolved. I'm going to put these to one side and have a look at the other batch real quick. This was the second batch. Surface is wet enough, I think. Toss it around in the apple and sugar mix. Dans la bouche. That was pretty good. The first one, it's all dissolved. I'm cutting off another piece and I'm drying it a bit with a towel just to see. You can see it's all just melted. I might double dip it, see what happens. It's happening a little bit with the second one, the one I dried, not as quickly though. Clearly a lot of moisture in there, and that's reacting with the sugar. Sugar is a hydrocolloid, maybe? I'll put something here if I'm wrong. Sugar loves water. For example, if you've got a wound that won't heal and keeps getting infected, you can pack sugar in it that you get from the pharmacy, because it needs to be sterile, because bacteria love moisture. So by packing it with the sugar, it pulls the moisture away and therefore kind of starves the bacteria. So I'm going to try and dehydrate it for a while, and I'll then have to try and figure out how to get the coating to stick. This is way more work than I thought it was going to be, my goodness. But I suppose it's all practice. Practice makes perfect. So just pat it on a paper towel to remove a bit of the excess moisture. I don't understand the ingredients well enough to know why it would be wetter on top than it is on the sides. Although I suppose the top and bottom have been exposed the last couple of days, whereas the sides have only just been cut, so that could be what it is. Thinking 35, 40 degrees C. So I'll chop it all up, let it dry out, and then I will see you tomorrow. I cut all of the gummies up, put them in the dehydrator. If you remember, I put all of the offcuts in a little bowl and decided to then sprinkle extra sugar on it. Blended it up using the wand blender and made leather. So, in fact, we'll do that in a second, because that's accidental. I had the dehydrator set to 37 degrees C, and it was in there 10 hours, 11 hours-ish. Turned it off, and then I just left it there for the last 7 hours. I'll show you a little close-up. It's got quite leathery. That's quite good. It has got a very pleasing chew to it, sort of in your back teeth. Now I know that the concept works. I've got a load more apples, so I might do a bit more experimenting to see if all of those gelling agents are necessary to get this texture, or if I can miss some of them out, or if I can just use one, or, you know, do a bit of playing around like that. Because there's no point in having them in there if they're not bringing anything to the party. We don't like any freeloaders here. This is the second batch. This one had much more of the gelling agents. That's the texture inside. I think I prefer the first batch. Benefits from being thinner. I think I'm gonna put the fat ones, the second batch, in again, now until I go to bed, 6-7 hours, just to see if it gets a bit chewier, a bit firmer. But it just doesn't have much structure inside. So hopefully drying out a bit more will benefit. To be fair, for me, the flavour is quite nice. It doesn't really necessarily need anything. Putting extra sugar and citric acid on it would kind of take it up a notch in terms of flavour. The acid more so than anything else. Just gives it that lovely tang. It's just on my balance of things I can be bothered doing. Do I want it real tasty, or do I want to have an hour of time to do something else? The leather is peeling away from the baking parchment really nicely and easily. And unsurprisingly, the flavour is pretty good. I put the leftover acid and sugar mix in there as well as extra sugar. But yeah, that bit is much softer. I have to put the thicker bits back in the dehydrator, so I think I'm going to put that in as well. Take it right down, see how dry it gets. I ended up dehydrating these overnight again. These are the thicker ones. Yeah, couldn't do it before bed because, well, I had to do more filming. I had to make some pumpkin pie biscuits. They're so good. So good. Anyhow, so let's see what the texture's like on these. Show you the texture, if I can break it apart. So it has gone much firmer inside. They're now like a little bit like a starburst or an opal fruit, whatever we're calling them at the moment. I'll definitely make them again. I have a whole heap more apples to get through. I think what I'll do is sort of combine two different techniques, and I think I'll reduce the apple puree down before adding in the gelling agents and see what that does. Just to boost the flavour up a bit, because the apple is very subtle and I want it a bit punchier. The texture is great. They could be nice little sweet morsels just to satisfy that candy craving. I forgot the fruit leather. So that's firmed up real nice. It's got a nice bit of stretch to it. The addition of the citric acid, oh, juicy. The addition of the citric acid and extra sugar really boosts the flavour, funnily enough. Obviously not quite as healthy as the original gummies, but if you don't mind a bit of extra sugar, give that a try as well. Hit subscribe and tap the little bell icon, and that way you definitely won't miss the next instalment on Can I Make Candy Out of You?